Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Kickabout Show on Grassroot Chats. With me in the studio, we have Big Donk, Neil Hinder, and The Angry One. The Kickabout Show is a show where we talk about anything in the world of football, anything trending, or anything we, the lads here, want to talk about. Today, we are talking about farewell to Pogba and Jesse Lingard from Man United, what this will mean for the two players, and is this the beginning of the rebuild for Ten Hag? And then we'll be looking at the three potential players that the guys think should join Man City, Newcastle, Southampton, and newly promoted Fulham. But before we start, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you see, what you hear, please click on the subscribe, follow button, follow us on YouTube. You can follow us on all social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and of course, all our content can be found on our website, www.grassrootchats.com. How's everybody doing? I see Mr. Hinder has patriotism in the house, wearing the England jersey, probably be better than Maguire, so no issues there. So, Paul Pogba and Jesse Lingard, leave Man United going on the free. A lot of people thought Lingard should have stayed with West Ham, got wooed in by Solskjaer at the time, and only for Solskjaer to leave. But before we look at Lingard, let's go to the man that, of course, the media loves so much. The man that his second stint in United has already been tainted as unsuccessful. Now I'm going to go straight to him, man. I think Pogba is a talented player. I think he was not particularly treated as well in terms of position played in Man United. So I'll go with Big Donk first. Donk, I'm going to ask you this. And I asked this question a few episodes ago. Pogba plays well for France, and they play a system that suits him. They build a team around him. Man United have tried Pogba in many different positions, except actually building a team around him. Why do you think that was the case?
To start me off with the easy question, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at his Man United stint, this second one here, you have to say, like, they paid 89 million for him, which was a hell of a lot of money at the time. They should have done more to get him performing for them, because, like you said, he's a World Cup winner with France. He plays well for France. He was pretty damn good at Juventus as well, which is why they paid 89 million for him in the first place. So you kind of have to lay it down at the feet of Man U that they've pretty much wasted him, like for the stint that he's been there this time. How many years has it been? Has it been like 4 or
4 years?
4 years, yeah. So that's a long time to like have a player like that, and like you said, not try and build something around him, kind of experiment where he's going to play. Sometimes make him sit back, sometimes put him a bit more advanced. If you're going to spend 89 million on a player, a bit like Lukaku at Chelsea, you need to like be doing something to accommodate them into the team, like, because that's not an insignificant purchase. And like we said, he's obviously a very good player and a World Cup winner. So from my point of view, it looks like they've kind of like wasted his talents, and probably could have got more out of him over the course of the 4 years.
I think he was actually, he came back to Old Trafford under Mourinho, so that's 5 years actually. And his first season, you could say, was a bit successful. Well, winning the Europa League under Mourinho. And it looked like, and he came back from his holiday early after the World Cup, so it looked like he was, showing some sort of maturity. I want to help the club. But Pogba has had very inconsistent plays, and he's particularly known for his lack of effort because of the way he strides along, and maybe he'll lose the ball, but he does some magical things. The Angry One, do you agree with what Big D has just said? Was his second stint, is it deemed unsuccessful simply based on mismanagement of the player's talent?
Yeah, I agree they mismanaged him. But also, if you look through a different looking glass, so to speak, it's really about expectation from the media and what have you, and fans maybe as well. Because he's an attacking player, a flair player, etc., etc. So the stuff that he does well, the stuff you'll notice him is when he's doing those through passes or driving the ball. The stuff that you're not going to notice and he's not going to do well is the stuff people talk about all the time. The tracking back, he doesn't get involved in the game, but he's a flair player. So they come alive when they're attacking. So you buy them for the moments of magic. You don't buy them to play like Milner and run across the pitch and tackle. No disrespect to Milner's and that, because you need all these types of players, but you bought a specific player to do a specific job, but they want him to do something else. And when he doesn't do it, because that's not what he's designed to do, you slag him off and talk about his hairstyles. I'm not sure what his hairstyles have to do with how he's playing. It's irrelevant. But that's what everyone talks about, is how many hairstyles he's got. Well, so you can't blame the player for that. If I'm a flair player and my best work is playing forward, and you play me left mid or CDM, and I don't play as well, yeah, there is some blame to the player because you can up your game a little bit, but that's not my role anyway. Well, why did you buy me if you're going to put me there? So you can't blame it all on the player. You have to blame the club for the majority. It's 70-30 at least. They've, like Lung says, they've wasted him.
Okay. So we do agree. I mean, at least two of you agree that he has been wasted, and maybe, as the angry one has said, he might have been able to do a bit better. Mr. Hinder, in terms of Paul Pogba, when we spoke about him a few episodes ago, one of the things you mentioned was lack of effort. So is it that we think he's not putting in the effort, or as the angry one has described him, it just looks like it because he's a flair player? So what would you think was his major issue, other than the mismanagement of him by the club? What do you think his major issue was?
Pogba's probably his own worst enemy. I agree with Mike. The haircuts are irrelevant. I suppose you're picking up on him because he's not playing well. And that's, I don't think it had anything to do with why he isn't playing well at all. But he does stick out a little bit further, like the kid at school wearing pink boots who's rubbish at football, right? But it's irrelevant in the greatest scheme of things. If we go back to, is he a good footballer? Yeah, but I don't know what he brings to a team, and I don't mean this disrespectful to Pogba. He's way better at football than I am. He'll be way more successful than I am, and earns a fuckload more money than I ever will earn. So kudos to him for everything that he does. But I don't know what his best position is and what he necessarily offers to any team. And let me elaborate a little bit more before you shout me down. So I said that he should be playing attacking midfield on the left. His actual stats would back up to say left midfield. Actually, he's most successful, 2 goals, 11 assists, and 27 appearances in total for his whole career, right? Central midfield, 58 goals, 74 assists. Defensive midfield at 8 goals, 2 assists. I would say he probably doesn't defend defense as much as he should do when he's sitting back, which again isn't his position. What is interesting though, actually, he has been, on statistics wise, for assists and goals, more successful in the Premier League than he was in Serie A. So in 157 games, he got 29 goals and 41 assists. And in Serie A, he got 124 games with 28 goals and 28 assists. So actually, on par, he was probably slightly more successful in the Premier League than he was in Serie A. Yet we weren't giving him the credit that maybe he deserved. And I think that's because he isn't somebody that we go, oh, look at him taking on 3 or 4 players, right? He's also not like Gerrard, where he's doing 60-yard diagonal balls. He's not English, so he's going to get less kudos from the media with regards to that. And I wonder whether any team is geared up to work around Pogba's skills and what he does and what they should do around him. Because when Man United re-signed him at 89 million, that was the perfect time to build your team around him. And if it wasn't working, obviously you die on your sword and you bought this World Cup winner at that particular point. But what was he bringing to the team? It's obviously not a massive amount of assists or a massive amount of goals. His tackles aren't exactly great. His work rate isn't been known as. But is he commanding the team well? Is everybody working off him? Is he doing the bits and pieces that we don't know? And at 89 million, is he that type of player that, you know, maybe like a Pirlo that could just pass the ball left, right, and center? Doesn't need that many assists. Does he need? Is he like an Iniesta, like the French Iniesta? Could he have been doing that? So Man United need to have done way more and got some midfielders to work with him and work in a group of 3. So Man United have let him down first and foremost, regardless of anything else. He's probably let himself down to a certain extent, but that signing from United was a really odd signing when they don't build a team around a player who's 90 million. I've bemoaned about Lukaku and not using him to his strengths. It's the same with Pogba. It should have been built around him at that particular point. and he should have been the focal point of whatever that was. That would have been great for him. It would have gone in with his so-called ego, and if he's a luxury player or what he is. I mean, I don't know what anyone else thinks what his desired position should be.
So he has had, in his second stint at Man United, he has had 3 managers. 4, if you count Michael Carrick. So he has had Mourinho, Michael Carrick, Ole and Ralph. Surely this obviously proves that when it comes to the management of the player, that these 4 guys didn't particularly manage him properly. Mourinho, we all know that Mourinho, when he gets his players, he wants the hard work, the running around. But surely you should know that this guy is a luxury player. And based on the way he played in Juve and having good players around him and just letting him shine, and the way he plays for France. So in terms of the scale of balance, the angry one, do you think it's more 90-10?
Before Angry One answers that, can you define what you mean by he's a luxury player at 90 million in the centre of the park?
Luxury player in terms of you let them. The best way. Are you asking me? I thought all of a sudden I have an opinion now.
Well, you do when it comes to Pogba.
Well, you're the one who said he was luxury, and this is what I was. Yeah, I was struggling to figure out where he comes in. You're saying he's a luxury player.
Okay, luxury player.
Like Chris Waddle?
Because they're so talented, you let them do their thing and let everybody else work extra to fit their style of play. The Pirlos, the Ronaldinhos, those kind of guys that, okay, fine. As the Angry One said, there's a moment of brilliance. However, the team is built to accommodate his talent, which is what France does. Man United didn't do that, pretty much, right? So, on the scale, I know the Angry One mentioned 70-30. And when we talk about he could have done more, what is this more we're talking about, the Angry One?
Well,
what is the extra
first of all,
he should have...
he never got played in his position. So, what we think is his best position for France. But then I think when they bought, what's his name? Fernandez. What's his name? Bruno.
Yes.
When they bought Bruno, that kind of kiboshed it a little bit. So then he had to go start playing at other places because Bruno came in and he was on fire for that half season, the season, in the prime position where you would want Pogba to play. And Bruno also isn't that great at running back and stuff, but he's getting the stats. So you kind of, everyone ignores that until this season. Everyone ignored the fact that Bruno doesn't really defend much. But now everyone can see that he throws his hands up in the air, doesn't do a lot, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of doesn't help Pogba. That's not Pogba's fault. You bought somebody in my position and play him there instead of me. So then he has to go and play on the left or the back. So then, but whatever position they put you in, whether you're professional or non-professional, you can give more. And sometimes you can't just say that's not my position. So then I don't have to give 100%. So there's an element of that. And in some games, which happens to everybody, he may not have given 100%. But I think everyone can have a bad game. But because it's Pogba, or not even that it's Pogba, because sometimes when the media doesn't like you or they think you should be doing more, they're on your back. Once there's like a Walcott, for example, once there's an expectation that Walcott is the next Henry, it doesn't matter what his stats are. As long as his stats are not as high as Henry, he's a failure. It doesn't matter he scored 100 goals, blah, blah, blah. We thought you were going to be Henry. You're not Henry. You're crap. We thought Pogba was going to be the next thing to save Man United. He wasn't. Doesn't matter why. You're crap. And that's it. And that's how it works, unfortunately. So, yeah, he's a victim in some ways, but I feel he can always give a little bit more. But whatever he did, it wouldn't have been enough.
Big D. All right. Big D, in terms of expectations, surely 89 million doing what he did with Juve, and seeing that a lot of people probably thought, Ferguson should have given him a chance. What more could Pogba have done?
Well, yeah, there's, like we said, Ferguson got rid of him in the first place and warned them not to sign him again. So he obviously saw something in his character that he didn't like. So I guess when things started going against him, the kind of things we talked about, being played out of position, being expected to do things you're not particularly, don't play to your strengths, Bruno coming in and then playing in your position, he probably didn't respond particularly well to that. And there's been like numerous performances of him on the pitch for Man United where he's been really slated by the fans and football watchers for not trying or not really caring it looked like when he was on the pitch. So he could have probably, like, if he had more of a character about him, which is probably, again, what Ferguson saw in him that he didn't like, that he didn't have that grit, determination. If he had a bit more of that, he could have probably, like, performed to higher expectations despite all the odds being against him. And if you want to put a positive spin on it, though, he was only cost a little bit more than Harry Maguire, and he's probably, like, been a roaring success in that comparison.
Well, that definitely is a positive spin. Pogba is a talented player. You have the likes of Real Madrid, PSG, and Juve trying to sign him at 29 years old. So clearly they see something, and hopefully the managers in those teams will be able to manage him better than Man United have.
Would it be unfair to say, though, that maybe he's just played in some really good teams other than Man United? No, and I mean that Juve team, that central pairing of Mc Saabii and Pirlo, and then he plays in the French team with other great players, and then he goes back to United, and he's played a little bit of a different formation. The football style's different in the UK. He's struggling to get involved. They've brought Fernandes, and then there's really, like, where are they all playing? They haven't got proper defined roles. Whereas before, he's just been left to his own devices, playing in again that Juve team that he was in when they were doing bits, and like that was an amazing Juve team, not been seen since. Like I hate to say that Pirlo and Mc Saabii could have carried me, but they could carry me. Like without a doubt in that particularly, and that is a luxury to have. And then he comes to United with these expectations, World Cup winner, winning everything in Serie A, and actually, but like Duncan said, Ferguson said not to sign.
I would say, but he's not a leader, or doesn't appear to be, based on and he's never been. So he's been playing those good teams with people who are leaders. You come to a wacky D.
Yes,
and in the French team they've got leaders, and I'm sure he probably speaks up in the dressing room, but he's not the guy that holds. I don't see him as the guy that holds the team together. Whether he is or not for France is by the by, but he's definitely not that guy for Man United. So you come to Man United and you expected him to be a Roy Keane or something. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And then even if it was going to happen, you play that position anyway. So he's just going to. It's not going to happen. So, but people expect it.
So the thing is, is it not, as far as, help me out here. No, yes, you might play with very good players, but to me, it's actually difficult to stand out in a team that has very good players compared to a team that doesn't. Because Paul Pogba stood out in Juve, even if they had good players. He was still an outstanding player. You can shake your head all you want. The stats and everything shows it. He stood out. He was still rated as one of their best players.
Stats.
Yeah, he read the stats.
I read all of the stats out. Yeah.
This is we come to the argument between stats and the performance.
Nobody stands out. A lot of people nobody stands out in this Man United team, though. So nobody. The only person that stands out in the Man United team is Ronaldo. But he's the best player in the world. Come on, man.
Yeah, but you just said nobody.
Okay, no, but I don't count him as.
You just said nobody.
Okay. So nobody but Ronaldo stands out.
The thing is, when you have. If you talk about teams that, so Man United had a very terrible season. Ronaldo stood out, right? But Ronaldo, in every team he has gone, even with great players, has always stood out.
Let's have it right about Ronaldo,
Pogba,
though.
With the talent he has.
No, but hold on. You can't compare the two because Ronaldo's playing up front. And he's one job.
I'm not comparing.
But I'm saying in terms of standing out, it's easy to stand out when you play up front, as long as you score. There's nothing else required of you.
I'm not talking about the position. I'm not talking about the position.
No one's looking at whether Ronaldo's working hard or nothing. All they're looking at is he scored 27 goals, whatever he scored. That's it. That's it. But
they are looking at Ronaldo, how he works and the effort, because those are the things that they blame Pogba for. He doesn't run back. He doesn't do this.
But he doesn't need to.
There were numerous debates about how you can't have Ronaldo in the team unless you have people pressing because he doesn't run. There were numerous debates on that on Sky Sports, on different media outlets. So that's what we accuse, well, not we, but it's what people accuse Pogba on. The difference between the position that Ronaldo's playing and what Pogba's playing is, all you have to do, regardless of how far you run and how, is score. If you score that, if you just score one goal, the rest of everything else is forgiven. In midfield, it's not that case. Unless you're scoring every week, which you won't do because you're a midfielder or an assist, you're going to be judged on other parts of the game. So it's easier for strikers to stand out so long as they're doing their primary role, which is to score a goal. And it's not as easy for a midfielder unless you're one of those guys who makes a million tackles or something like that, or scores goals. Yeah.
The point I tried to make is Neil mentioned him. He was playing around good players. In France, he still stands out. Even when he won the World Cup, he was probably one of their best players. So you can look at stats and say, oh, the stats say this or the stats say that, but the man stood out.
Okay,
So it is the same way. The same way we talk about stats. For another example, is people talk about, oh yeah, Salah has been very inconsistent. He's the highest goal scorer and the highest assist. Stats say that, but people still say he's inconsistent. So sometimes the way we run to stats is just it baffles me when it comes to that. I think personally, forget Pogba, as a good player, which is one of the arguments I use for Jota. People say, oh yeah, Jota, he's playing with very good players. But it's still difficult for you to stand out whether you play with good players or not.
yeah, except
So with Pogba, with France, he plays well, he stands out. But then with Man United, with his mismanagement, and of course with the other things, and of course Man United having a very terrible season,
so basically we're saying
it
Man
didn't
United are
particularly
whack.
look good for Pogba.
That's basically what we're saying.
Oh, I'm sure you couldn't wait to say that.
And just another
Well,
point,
what
like
else is it?
he had a 5-year contract then. These were his prime years,
He's
and
wasted it.
this would be like very similar to Bale then. He was happy he didn't go anywhere. No clubs came in for him. He was happy, despite not performing well and Man U not performing well, to stay there for the full 5 years and take home that very large salary that he would have negotiated when he was signed for 89 million. So, like, again, like if he had ambition about him as a footballer, he could have either stepped it up himself, or like no one came in for him at all. Like, they're all coming in now. Now he's free.
One day rumors about Pep wanting him in Man City.
He don't seem like a Pep player, but I mean, maybe.
Well, he
was linked to them because I think they're one of the only people that can afford his wage, right? And he was what, and like 2014 World Cup, he was Young Player of the Year. I don't know what stats or where anyone's ever gone as Pogba as being one of the greatest players ever.
No, no one's saying that.
I didn't get it. He's heavily
He's a good player.
overrated. Heavily heavily overrated, right? And heavily pressured by the media and big experience on his shoulders that maybe he's never lived up to and never had. Maybe that's the case. When he goes on to somewhere else,
But
he might do the same again. The chances are, if he goes to a big club, he's going to
But he
win the
doesn't
league.
set the expectation of how good he is. I mean, you play as good as you play, but some players play really well and people still slag them off. Some people don't play that well, but people hype him up to be the best thing since sliced bread. He's not in control of all of his media image. All he can do is perform on the pitch and win stuff.
Of course.
So if there's an expectation, which I said earlier, if there's an expectation and there was an expectation that Pogba is going to change the world for Man United, that's on the people placing the expectations on him. He just come to play football in his preferred role, which he wasn't playing, and he hasn't got the character, it seems, to fight back, a bit like Lukaku in a way.
So where do you think the expectation came from? The United fans, other fans,
World Cup
media,
winner,
a mixture of
89
all
million.
of it.
The return of this hero.
He had already played first time in Man United, came back, played one season, won the World Cup. So it's not like he won the World Cup before he came back.
But he was never going to be
I
the
think
player
the
that he
expectation
wanted.
came from. No, the expectation came from the hype he originally had from Man United. Went to Juve, and he had a very good first spell at Juve, and he won the league with
No, but
Juve,
the player
playing with those kind of players.
But the player at Juventus, even
So the expectation, and of
go on. Sorry, go on.
So the expectation, most expectations are particularly set from the media, and that's I'm not talking about just the English media. I'm talking about media worldwide. Most expectations are usually set by them when they make a lot of news about a particular player, what he does, what he has done. So I doubt that obviously the fans, any player that any team buys, the fans want something because they believe, okay, they're buying you, so hopefully you should be
Okay,
good.
but the question is,
But most expectations are set by the
But the
media.
question is this: the type of player that Pogba is, forget about Pogba, the individual, the type of player that he is at his best isn't the player that Man United needed to turn their fortunes around. But that was the expectation placed on him. That's not his fault. That's Man United's fault. That's who was picked. You can't buy a left back, a quality left back, and expect him to change your whole team around just because he's a World Cup winner. That type of player isn't what they needed to turn their fortunes around. Unfortunately, they pinned all their hopes on him, and he hasn't lived up to expectations. But those expectations, for me, were false to begin with. To be honest, even on his best day, he wouldn't have done what they wanted him to do.
Yeah,
He was,
and even at the World Cup, he wasn't even in the dream team, the top 11. Like, there was barely any French players in there, to be honest. It was But I don't know. Maybe he came over with far too much, and they should have listened to Alex Ferguson and not re-signed him, like Dunk said. That's kind of the
At
be all and
most,
end all of
he
it,
would
right?
have done.
It was Mourinho's signing.
But at most, he would have done what Bruno has done, more or less similar. So if they didn't have Bruno and they had Pogba instead, it would have been a similar, maybe less goals, perhaps more assists, but around that type of contribution. That's not going to change Man United's fortunes to getting back to where they want it to be alone. It's just not enough. So why all the stress on him? It doesn't make sense. But yeah.
Well, Pogba has left now, and we shall see who signs
He's
in
here
the
now.
future.
He's in the room having a drink.
As I said initially.
Is he talking to Richard down the corner?
He's my local.
Richard? No, I have no idea. We shall see who signs in between PSG, Real Madrid, and Juve. With other players, when it comes to mismanagement, Jesse Lingard, should he have just stayed with West Ham at that point? I know for some reason Man United blocked the deal in January when he was supposed to go. But he stayed, had a non-existent season. Now he's left on the free. Dunk, another case of mismanagement.
Yeah, Lingard is pretty bad mismanagement from Man U. They've, again, like, how old is Lingard? Is he 29, 27?
28?
One of them in there anyway. So in the last couple of years, he's in his prime. They're not using him. He went to West Ham and he had a good run in the team, scored some goals, looking good, getting some praise from the media, fans, people wanting to see him back for England playing like that. And then he goes back to Man U and has said afterwards that they promised to give him a chance or some football or whatever. They're giving him nothing. And then it all ended with Rangnick wouldn't even bring him on to say goodbye to the fans, towards the end of the Premier League when there wasn't, particularly much to play for. So yeah, you've got to say that's pretty bad mismanagement from Man U. Again, like, he probably wasn't on a massive contract, so there's no skin off their nose that they got a player, I don't know what he's on. Let's just call it 50, 80 grand a week, whatever, somewhere in there. That's not going to hurt Man United financially just to have him around on their books. But yeah, it's just poor form from Man United to have stalled his career for the last couple of years and not to have let him go.
Apparently, he had a conversation with Solskjaer and he was possibly guaranteed that he would be used more, which is why the West Ham deal didn't happen at the start of the season. Then in January, Newcastle wanted him, and there was a talk about Man United wanted some extra add-ons to the contract. So it baffles me to understand, for a player he had no plans. And when we talk about the players not being used, this is solely down to just the managers, right, Mr. Hinder? It's not like it's the manager giving you time to play and managing your expectations.
There's one thing in there. Lingard was meant to go at Christmas. That was blocked due to the ongoing police investigation with a certain player for Man United. So they needed a cover, which was the reason why he didn't go, evidently. Otherwise, he was leaving to go to West Ham or Newcastle by all accounts. That was pretty much a done deal, but the board blocked it because they needed
pretty much
cover.
A done deal for who? For which of the clubs? West Ham or Newcastle?
Lingard was on his way to, I believe, Newcastle on loan to the end of the season, but because of the Greenwood incident, he was blocked and told that he had to stay at the club until the end of the season. It doesn't matter. They wanted someone to play up top.
I thought what they said was Man United charged too high for the loan fee.
No, that was why he was blocked, evidently. They didn't have anyone else on there. But he played 22 appearances this season for United in all competitions.
That's amazing. He comes in, plays 10 minutes. It's still an appearance. But anyway,
the tickets paid for appearances, right? So he had 22 appearances. I don't know if they were 10 minutes, an hour, 90 minutes. I can delve deeper. But he had a fair amount of at least appearances. I think it was upsetting at the end that they didn't give him a goodbye. To be fair, that out of all of it, that was probably the most disrespectful thing they could have done. No player necessarily has that God-given right to have that. But I believe that he should be given
disagrees with you.
I believe that he should have had 5-10 minutes at least just to, get a clap from the fans as a parting gift, right? Regardless of anything else in the
might
game.
Have been 90 minutes because they were out of everything by then. Man United were out of everything by then. Give him the 90. Makes a difference.
He was a good player for West Ham. Played well. He's 29. He was mismanaged for a long time, but Man United had lost their way. They didn't really have a position for him. I don't know whether he was playing up top, midfield. It was just kind of used, if that makes sense. He never cemented a position in the team during at least the last 2-3 years, and that was probably his biggest downfall. But then they were trying to accommodate Fernandes and Pogba, and then they needed a defensive midfielder on at the same time as the other two. So actually, that's why Fred got time or McTominay got time, because they were, reliable and willing to do the work that the other guys necessarily didn't want to do. I'm not sure Lingard would have been of that, but I think he'll be an absolute signing for whether he goes next, and I think he'll do really, really well.
In the last episode, the Play to the Whistle episode we had, you mentioned that he could be good for Brighton, and one of you, I think pretty much the angry one and Dunk, one of you said he should be, I think it was the angry one, he should be good to go for West Ham. They've started their talk again with him. Ideally though, if you must pick one team, and it doesn't have to be between those two, looking at the Premier League, especially even looking at the newly promoted clubs, where do you think Lingard will best be suited? If you could give him one team that go there and this would be good for the rest of, well, not the rest of, at least this would be good for you. The angry one, would you still suggest between West Ham and Brighton? Would there any other club you think you can see him going in?
I don't think Brighton's in there. I think we were just saying that, but I think it'll be Newcastle because they potentially go in places, and West Ham are already at places. But
will he get into the Newcastle team?
Who knows? But the thing is that it's mismanagement also on the players' part, because there was no reality anywhere in his lifetime that he was going to realistically start for Man United over Bruno or Pogba. It's just not going to happen. So whatever Solskjaer is telling you, you have to be realistic about your abilities, but also the chances of your employer sticking to the promises they're giving you. It doesn't make sense. There's no way that's going to happen, regardless of what you think your abilities are. So he needs to be realistic and try to push harder to go to another club to revive his career. Obviously, he's caught up in the kudos and the mystique of playing for Man United, but that's the old Man United. It's not this Man United. So there's an issue there. That being said, now he's got disrespected. He's out the door on a free. West Ham seems the most likely. He knows the manager. He knows the system. He knows the players. And for me, he's an attacking midfielder, realistically. So that would suit him. You're right, Newcastle. If he goes there, he's an interim player anyway, because you know that they're going to go up levels over the next few seasons. But he's better than Willock. Their attacking midfielders now, I don't even know who they are. So whoever they are, he's clear cut above them. So yeah, I think.
Well, Bruno gets forward a bit, so he's probably not getting in ahead of him.
So then, well, if that's the case, then it's West Ham or Brighton.
Well, we shall see what happens to Jesse Lingard. Most people probably think West Ham is the ideal destination. 22 years in Man United's ranks, but we'll see how the future holds. Speaking about players and where they should potentially go, we shall talk about the 3 players, or possibly more, that the lads here in the studio have for Man City, Newcastle, Southampton, and Fulham. So let us start with Man City. Neil Hinder, who are your 3 players you think Man City should get? And I mean, 3 players adding to the fact that they've just gotten Haaland.
Yeah, so you instantly took a striker out of that one. So Lewandowski isn't going there. Calvin Phillips, I've got down one of the number 1 picks. I think they should be looking at midfielder with a bit of grit, steely. It'd be nice for him to leave Leeds just to wind Duncan up. I think that's one of the reasons Pep will sign him, because he doesn't like Dunk being happy. So yeah, Calvin would be a good sign in. They've been linked with Cucurella from Brighton, new left back. I think they'll be looking for all sorts this transfer window, to be honest. I think they'll be looking for at least a left back and maybe a couple of midfielders. Sterling might be on his way out as well, and maybe another centre back. Centre back I've got them looking at is maybe Pau Francisco Torres from Villarreal. one of the best passing centre-backs in La Liga at the moment, fits in with their ilk of being able to defend and pass the ball. I think completion ratio of like 91% of his passes. So I think they're going to have a very busy transfer window, which is going to be odd for a team that's just won the Prem.
Okay, well, there was a special on Sky Sports where they were talking about, one of the football journalists was talking about Man City possibly still buying 4 to 5 players, which is amazing. So we'll see who goes out the window and for who they replace. Dunk, who are your players to go to Man City?
Yeah, so tricky to come up with players for Man City because obviously they've got to be fairly top level. First one I've got is I think they could look at they're losing Ake, so bringing in another centre back, possibly who can get straight into the first team. So I've got possibly De Ligt from Juventus, Netherlands, like doing really well at the minute. Apparently he's got some issues over contract demands and things, so that could be one possible for them at centre back. In the midfield, I've got Calvin Phillips. At least if he goes, we'll get a nice wad of money for him. I mean, possible other options in that central midfield area. There's talk about Kante maybe not being happy at Chelsea anymore, so there's another possibility there. Kessié might be a done deal to Barcelona, or there might be still time to get in on that one. He's moving on a free from AC Milan. So there's a couple of options there for midfield. And up front, if Sterling does go, then I've just got down Dybala again, because he's that kind of top level that could slot into Man City. I don't know if he'd be happy playing in that kind of rotational system, but again, it's like tricky to come up with players for Man City because they're at the top of their game.
Can you imagine them signing Mane just to replace Sterling?
That'd be good. Amazing. I'd like to see that, yeah.
The angry one?
I'll go at the back. Somebody like De Ligt. Yep, I agree with that. In the middle, though, if you have to put between Phillips and Rice, I think they'd probably go Rice because they like that 100 million type player, don't they? So put Rice in there. I think they need a bit of creativity in the middle. I mean, Rice can do it, but I was thinking about Aouar in the French league as well. But then again, he's been linked with Arsenal, so I don't think anyone who's linked with Arsenal is going to be linked to City. But anyway, and they do need a fullback, but I'm not sure the caliber that they'd go for. So I'd just say my 2 picks would be, because they don't need a striker, because they got the Alvarez the other day, and they also got Haaland. So I think just middle of the park and at the back.
Well, we'll see what happens in Man City. It'd be interesting to see the players that are going. Fernandinho has left. There's talk of Sterling leaving. There's even talk of Mahrez leaving. So we'll see who Pep goes for. Moving to Neil Hinder's favorite English Premier League club, and of course the favorite manager for Dunk, Eddie Howe's Newcastle. Let us start with Big D. Since we're all convinced that Eddie Howe will probably stay and have a fresh new season, and he'll be backed up by a good amount of money, who are your 3 players you think should go to Newcastle?
Right, so for Newcastle, at the back, and they've been linked with him, Ake, because they can afford to bring him in from Man City. He's a quality player, ex-Bournemouth. What more can you say about that? So, Eddie Howe's worked with him before. So there's a possible one there. Another player moving further up the pitch is Carrasco of Atletico Madrid. That man is proven to be a mercenary because he moved to the Chinese league before and then came back to Madrid. So if they could throw enough cash at him, he could be very possible for Newcastle. And then we were talking about Bale earlier. So if he is serious about still playing football at the top level, then that could be an option for Newcastle. So again, he's gonna take a pay cut wherever he goes, but perhaps he'll make crazy wage demands of Newcastle if he's in discussions with them. And then the last one for a striker would be I've got Calvert-Lewin down. So he's not been performing at Everton. Fits English homegrown quota, so it might be someone they would go for.
Gareth Bale watched our last Play to the Whistle episode. Well, I'm hoping. And he so wants the angry one to wear a Spurs shirt. So he's going to Cardiff, ladies and gentlemen. Don't worry about that. The angry one, your 3 players to potentially go to Newcastle.
All right, so up front, I'm going for Lautaro Martinez. He scored about 20 in Serie A. He's a good player. I think he needs a bigger league.
The same guy Lukaku wants to go back to. It's going to leave him.
Well, yeah, basically. Throw him in. Lucas Paqueta is also in the French league. 18 goals from midfield, not bad. And to be honest, he's the bomb on FIFA, I have to say. But even in real life, he's pretty good as well. So those 2. Then you've got freebies floating around because they can afford it. You can look at the Dybalas, the Pogbas. I think they're looking at, it's most of done though, they're signing a goalkeeper, Diego Costa. He plays in La Liga. So that's one off the list. But I definitely think that they need a higher caliber striker and a more solid midfield. And if you get Ake as well, that only bolsters the back. But to be fair, you could put 10 players for Newcastle because they can afford to buy a whole team if they want to. There's almost unlimited money.
Financial fair play, my friend. Financial fair play.
Say that, but
it's funny how Ake is mentioned. Ake's issue with Man City though has a lot to do with injury. It's not like he wasn't injured, and then how many teams would take that risk? But we never know. As you say, they have the money, and the bigger your squad is, the better. Mr. Hinder, your favorite team in the Premier League. Who are the players you think should go there?
I think Newcastle is going to be a bit of an interesting one. Is it Howe's players or is this the board signings? Because I imagine he's got a different idea to what the board want to sign and his type of player. They're going to get a name in. They're going to want a name in because I think that's kind of shows that they've got some intent. So I've got Wijnaldum from PSG. Looks like he's on his way out somewhere. They've got the money. That could be a decent signing for them. Rafinha from Leeds, and they've got to be at least in the mix looking at that side of things in order to look up front. Bale, again, I think some of these signings could be no-brainers for them, and depending on how much cash that they're really willing to spend. And I did also have Leno from Arsenal, because Newcastle definitely need a new goalkeeper if they're going to compete higher up the league.
Leno better than Dubravka and what's the other guy's name? Can't remember. What's the other guy's name?
Arsenal have just signed a new goalkeeper, haven't they? They've signed the young American. So I'm assuming that Leno's going to be further down the list, or they're looking to get rid. I think he's a decent goalkeeper. Is he better than Dubravka? Probably.
Yeah, should be.
I mean, I'm sure you mentioned that he's better than Ramsdale in your books.
I mean, I prefer him than Ramsdale, but I'm not picking the team. Ramsdale made mistakes towards the end of the season when it started to matter. When they
did
choked,
you say you're
right?
not picking the team?
I'm not for Arsenal, no. I only pick him for Newcastle.
Captain Obvious. All right, no problem. Okay, so we'll see. Moving on to Southampton, a team that has managed to just be in the league for the last few seasons. Not too much mention in terms of relegation or going too far up. However, they've usually been a team where people go and get players. But now it looks like they've just been a team just managing to float around the Premier League. So they will definitely need players. Big D, who are the players you have chosen to help Southampton next season?
Yeah, so they're similar to Brighton, aren't they? They have like fairly good recruitment and can move those players on for a bit of profit. For Southampton, I've been looking at some of the free transfers that might be more realistic for them. So I think they need another centre-back. So you've got a list here from Ben Mee was mentioned a bit last week. Fabian Schär's out from Newcastle. Could be solid for Southampton. Seiss from Wolves and Marty from Leicester. So they're all available on a free. So perhaps one or two of those at the back. Goalie, I think they've lost both their goalies, have they? Is it Fraser Forster went somewhere to obviously be the English contingent, and McCarthy's contract ran out. So they should probably be looking at Pope. I don't know if there's going to be a big transfer fee involved in that, but he's probably going to be looking to get back into the Premier League, and I'm not sure like how many teams will go in. There's probably like quite a few teams higher up the table that already have solid goalkeepers, so he might be more realistic for them. And then the last one was who came up for Brighton as well, which is that man Diaz, because they need a striker as well. So again, that's should be like a realistic transfer for Southampton to get someone who's performed quite well in the Championship.
Okay, Mr. Hinder, you're not picking the team for Arsenal. We're pretty sure you're not picking the team for Southampton. But yeah, that's true. Before I even ask you for your potential players, in terms of would you have Nick Pope go to Chelsea, seeing as you're not a big fan of Mendy, and well, you think Kepa is better, but would you say Nick Pope is better than two of them?
No, I'd still keep with Kepa. I don't think you take the loss on Kepa. He's also really young as well. Everyone must remember De Gea's early seasons at United, slandered in the press, made some high-profile mistakes. They kept behind him, they supported him, and now look at him. I think that's a similar situation. Look at the Leeds goalkeeper. A few errors, like costly errors as well. They stayed up, didn't really cause them any harm in the long term. But as soon as you drop him and make that decision, that doesn't do the keeper any good at all. And again, I think Kepa did really well when Mendy was at AFCON. So let's not think that Chelsea suddenly were bottom of the league and losing every game when Kepa was in. So no, I would, if I was Chelsea, I'd be keeping with Kepa. I 100% agree with Dunk though that Pope should be on Southampton's list. He has to be on at least 10 of the Premier League teams list of goalkeepers. Anyone outside the top 10, I think that he would do a good job for. They have to get Brozier back on loan again from Chelsea. That has to be done.
Or get him on permanent.
I mean, I don't think Chelsea can let him go permanently because he looks a decent player, and maybe another season before he comes back to Chelsea when they've sorted the Lukaku issue out. But yeah, he looks decent. I don't think Southampton would be in the market to potentially pay for him. Arsenal might be if Chelsea would let him go to Arsenal. They definitely need another striker. And the other one is Max Aarons from Norwich. He's one of only Norwich's decent shinings. I said it before. He would see quite a lot of teams in the Prem, especially in the bottom 10. That sounds a bit harsh. You're in the bottom half of the league, but there is a little bit of a gulf there. But Southampton are one of those clubs, aren't they? They could pull out an absolute worldie out of nowhere, go and beat Chelsea 3-0, and then lose next week 7-0 against Leeds. So it's no one. Southampton are a weird club to understand. I don't know what they're looking to do. I haven't been on the phone to Ralph this week, so maybe I'll give them a call just to see what they're looking to get for the Prem. But are they looking to start pushing on? Because they've been around now a fair few seasons, and you can see like Palace and Brighton are looking to start climbing up the league, and they're well established. Leeds had that one good season, and then last season was a bit hit and miss. So they'll be looking to just be safe established this season. But the rest of them have got to start looking upwards about where they're going to go, and that will be interesting from Southampton's point of view. Who do they sign? I don't think they should end up going like they end up doing, looking at some 35-year-old striker who's just isn't really what they need at the moment. They need to start planning properly.
Okay, who are your three players, the angry one, that you think Southampton should bring in?
I think they need a bit more firepower up top, and I think they can raid some of the relegated teams. So I'd say Emmanuel Dennis, Watford. He got 10 goals last season in a quite poor Watford team. I hate to say it. Josh King's in there as well. Although I think we mentioned episode ago him going back to Bournemouth. But anyway, Nick Pope's got to be on there if you can afford him because he's a quality keeper, regardless. And also I'd take Tchaikovsky, just to say pronounce his name, as a experienced centre back. So that's 4 technically.
Okay, there you go, Southampton fans. Those are the suggestions that the guys have given for your team to possibly improve for next season. Get Nick Pope, ladies and gentlemen, get Nick Pope. And of course, we move on to the newly promoted Fulham. They're back in the Premier League. They had a very good season in the Championship. Is this a case of just coming back to the league and hopefully staying on and not being relegated again? Let's start with you, Neil Hinder. Who are the 3 players you think Fulham should get in?
I think Fulham have got to be careful when they come back up, and not do maybe what they've done before, splash a bit of cash on some players and hope for the best. They need to make sure that the players are complementing what they've existingly got, and not necessarily hindering the team. So a top class goalkeeper would be helpful. Strakosha from Lazio is on his way out. He's got over 200 appearances for them. He's on a free. Could be a good signing for them. Stepping up to the Prem is obviously a big goal from Championship to the Prem. And Rangers centre back Calvin Bassey looks like he's might be on his
good
way
though.
out.
A lot of people seem to want to get him.
Yeah, well, he looks cheap as well. From what I was reading on the net, like 4 million. He wasn't even look like he was going to be expensive. So I don't know what is in his contract there, or whether Rangers don't like him. But if that's how much it costs to get him, I think that would do Fulham a world of good. We spoke about this player in the last show, Morgan Gibbs-White. He was at Wolves last season, at loan from the horrible team at the other side of the Sheffield. But yeah, he could do them some good. They just need to make sure they don't do that season they did before, when they signed a load of old. They basically played Football Manager and went through every old 33, 34-year-old Premier League player that's got a bit of experience and signed them. There's nothing wrong with having good experience in a team, but it's got to not be at the detriment of your existing squad. It's got to complement it. They've got to be willing to help the team. And I think that's kind of a fine line. They've got Marco Silva is their manager. He was never given a fair crack at the whip at Watford, was he? Let's be honest. I think it was Watford he was at, right?
Yeah, he went there when they were sacking managers left, right, and centre.
So he's done well, right? He's got them back in. They've got to commit to the season, not panic, and maybe they've got to have a plan A of staying in the Prem, and then plan B if they go back down. That's realistic, but they're looking to build for the season after they go straight back up. There's nothing wrong with being a yo-yo club for a few seasons until you can get established, but it's having that nous about them and not panicking and just being silly. They've got to be careful about it. So good luck to Fulham, I say.
Oh, good. The angry one. Your 3 players for Fulham.
To be fair, they're not too dissimilar from the Southampton ones, to be honest. But I'll go Emmanuel Dennis or Eddie Nketiah if he doesn't stay at Arsenal, so because they need goals. And I think Mitrovic goes crazy in the Championship, scoring like 1 million goals. Then comes to the Prem, and somehow I don't know what happens to him.
He goes crazy in the Championship and international, but for some reason,
I don't get it.
Comes to the Prem.
It might be supply. So I think they need extra firepower to just get those goals over the line. Then I think they need to shore up the back. So if me and Tchaikovsky are free, I'd take those 2 and or Pope. But the difference between them and Southampton is whether they can afford the wages of these guys, because those are the 2. I mean, midfield is also key, but to stay in the Prem, you need a decent defense and you need to be able to score goals just to stay in them. And I don't think they're going to have that unless they either play very, very compactly or get a bit more experience in. Well, we'll see. But yeah, that's my 4.
We shall see. And of course, Dunk, the 3 players you think Fulham should get.
Yeah, so I agree with Neil. They are the ones who last time they came up just went, did the old just the splashing the cash around like this and just firing 20, 30 million on a few different players. So yeah, they need to take a different strategy. So just a quick one. Again, Pope should be on their radar. Again, he probably might want a bit higher up the league, but if they can convince him, they're going to stay in this time, they might have a shot. Maybe for players for a bit more experience, a couple of players that are going on frees. Nathaniel Klein, the right back, is going on a free. Milner's contract is up at Liverpool, so it could be someone to bring in and just be that bit of experience in the squad, using him, sparingly, or getting him in and stabilise, give a bit of experience to the younger players. And then they've obviously lost Carvalho to Liverpool, so possible replacements for him. A left field one would be Musonda for Chelsea, who's has been there for years, but has been out on loan for years. So I'm not sure how well he's doing at the minute, but it could be a possible one there. And then a couple of Championship players would be Swift from Reading, And I mentioned Willock from QPR earlier, both of whom had team of the season cards in FIFA. So, they're obviously quality.
If FIFA doesn't endorse us in the next few weeks, I'll be very upset.
I want my own card.
I'm very upset.
I want my own special card.
You want your own card? Okay. Speed 200 and something.
You had your card before and
No,
moaned
can you
about it
give
'cause your
me no
was like
pace?
20.
Rubbish. I'm faster than you. Over 10 yards.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Farewell to Pogba and Lingard, and we'll see what the future holds for them. We have spoken about the potential players that will improve Man City, Newcastle, Southampton, and Fulham. Ladies and gentlemen, please follow us on all our social media platforms at Grassroot Chats. And of course, all the content can be found on our website, grassrootchats.com. It's been a good Wednesday, people. Thank you, Big Dunk, the Angry One, and Mr. Hinder. We can never get my head around Kepa being the best Chelsea goalkeeper, but maybe someday Neil Hinder will be proven right. Till then, it's goodbye from Mr. Hinder.
Wonderful.
Goodbye from Dunk.
Maybe Man U should have tried Pogba in goal. Catch you later.
And goodbye from the Angry One.
Bye.
Till then, ladies and gentlemen, it's more things.